to the next session titled Space, Defense, and AI. This is a very new area that Nikkei Forum launched from this year, apparently because Melbourne General Council covers the South Australia, which is famous for the space. But the reason why we included defense was a challenge for us as well. We didn't know about the Mogami's result, but we knew that our deepening relationship will be an important topic for us to discuss at the Nikkei Forum. Our panelists for this session are Mimi Zhou, Professor, Head of School of Private and Commercial Law, UNSW Sydney, and Kate Kitagawa, Professor of Practice in Space Research and Education, La Trobe University, former Director of the Space Education Office, JAXA. And Campbell Pegg, Director Space South Australian Space Industry Centre, and Malcolm Davis, Senior Analyst, Defence Strategy, Australian Strategic Policy Institute, ASPI. And the moderator is Chris Hewett, General Manager, Space Policy, Australian Space Agency. We are now pleased to begin with the keynote address from Mr. Soichi Noguchi, Astronaut and Chief Technology Officer, Institute for International Socio-Economic Studies. Please welcome Mr. Noguchi, who is joining us online today. Good afternoon.
Can you hear me well?
Yeah. Yes, we can hear you well.
Great. All right, great. Thank you very much for a warm introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon from scorching hot Tokyo. The globe is warming, but the Tokyo is boiling, so I really wish I were in Melbourne today. First of all, I would like to thank Nikkei for giving me a chance to talk at the Nikkei Forum Melbourne 2025. It is a great honor to speak on a topic that resonates deeply with me, not only as an astronaut, but also as a citizen of the Earth, the expanding collaboration between Japan and in space, security, and artificial intelligence. All right, you can turn on to the next page. Okay, can you turn on? Yes, thank you. Yeah, Japan and Australia share a deep strategic relationship built on democracy, human rights, and the role of law. This partnership was elevated in 2014 when Prime Minister Abe and the Prime Minister Abbott issued a joint statement recognizing Japan and Australia as special strategic partners. Since then, our two nations have walked hand in hand with the strengthening defense cooperation, especially under the concept of proactive contribution to peace. The signing of the Reciprocal Access Agreement in 2023 and the joint F-35 military training in 2024 has opened the new doors for interoperability and the trust between our defense forces. But let me emphasize, our partnership goes beyond military cooperation. After the devastating 2011 Great Eastern Japan earthquake, Australia was among the first to send search and rescue teams. In return, Japan provided aircraft and supplies during the catastrophic 2019 through 2020 Australian bushfires. This is the true allies do. We help each other when it matters most. Next slide, please. Okay, Australia contribution. Australia's contribution to space development is both historic and future-facing. With vast geography and its southern hemisphere location, Australia provides strategic advantages in launch operation and satellite tracking. In recent years, the country has shifted from being a launch site or ground station to becoming a true space industry actor. The Australian Space Agency was established in 2018, and in 2024, astronaut Catherine Pegg qualified for a mission to the International Space Station, a proud milestone for all of us in the space community. I believe we have Campbell Pegg on the panel today. We met at the Osaka Expo early in May, so yeah, best wishes. Hi, Campbell. Australia is investing significantly at the local level as well. In South Australia, space startups are thriving. They are not just innovating, they are collaborating with Japanese partners, with global partners, and with shared vision for sustainable, competitive space ecosystem. Next slide, please. Yeah, let's talk politics, geopolitics. Yeah, everyone's favorite topic. Space is no longer just about exploration. It is about national and economic security. Japan's Ministry of Defense issued the Space Domain Defense Guidelines in July 2025. The guidelines defined 4 priorities: situational awareness, resilient satellite communication, function assurance, and disruption capability. The shift reflects the new reality. We now live in a world where space systems can be the first targets of a conflict. Whether it's satellite constellation for navigation and communication, or AI-enhanced orbital threat detection, space is becoming a domain where peace must be defended intelligently and decisively. We have also war in Ukraine highlighted economic security challenges in space. When the ability of a single commercial source like Starlink can alter the balance of battlefield communication, it is clear that autonomy matters. This is why Japan and the EU recently agreed to jointly develop satellite constellations. We must ensure redundancy, resilience, and reliability in our space infrastructure, free from over-defense of any one actor. Next slide, please. Okay, let's talk about recent milestones in our two nations cooperation. Last month, Japan participated in exercise Talisman Sabre 25, one of the largest multilateral defense drills in the Indo-Pacific region. Japan collaborated with Australia, United States, and the UK in testing underwater acoustic communication systems for autonomous maritime platforms. This technology has both military and economic applications, from protecting undersea cables to advancing quantum sensing. Even more exciting, the Japan Air Self-Defense Force joined the tabletop exercises on space defense for the first time. This marks a new chapter in Japan-Australia cooperation in space situational awareness, debris mitigation, and defense against anti-satellite weapons. As we look for the future, Japan participated in August Pillar 2, focusing on AI and autonomous systems, opens the door for future synergy. From unmanned aerial vehicles to maritime drones, our nations can jointly shape the next generation of defense technologies, powered by responsible AI. Artificial intelligence is rapidly becoming the brain of space, guiding space constellations, optimizing launch trajectories, even predicting system failures before they occur. Australia and Japan, both technologically advanced democracies, are in a prime position to lead in AI-enabled space security. Next slide, please. Okay, let me close with the personal reflections. When I orbited the Earth around the IISS, I saw no boundaries, just continents, clouds, and oceans. And I realized we all shared the same future. Japan-Australia relationship and partnership is more than geopolitical alignment. It is a vision for the Indo-Pacific region and for the world. a vision of cooperation over competition, of shared progress over narrow interests. By uniting our strengths in space, security, and AI, we are not only protecting our citizens, we are expanding humanity's horizons. Let us continue this journey together. Let us reach for the stars, not alone, but side by side. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Noguchi-san, for your outstanding presentation. Now we will start the panel discussion and would like to hand over to our moderator, Mr. Chris Hewett, to lead the session.
Oh, thank you very much, and what a pleasure it is to be here this afternoon at such a significant event and to be able to contribute. And Noguchi-san, thank you for that keynote. That was a really masterful survey of the connections, the nexus that exists between space, defence and AI. And because I understand you have to leave us early, I'm going to call moderator's prerogative here and ask you a question straight away. Are you okay with that? Noguchi-san?
To answer, and yeah.
Great, thank you very much. So my question is, and I think you touched on this at the end, as the only person in this room, either physically or virtually, who has been to space, can you just please reflect on how that influences your thinking on global responsibility and cooperation?
Okay, Chris, thank you very much for questions. And yeah, I was fortunate enough to fly to space 3 times and spend over 340 days in zero gravity. By the way, my first space flight, I was with Dr. Andy Thomas, a proud Australian astronaut. The impression of our Earth remained the same from the day one. When I looked through the overhead window of the space shuttle, Earth is blue, very shiny, and the only one. There's no backup. There's no alternative to Earth. It is our responsibility to cherish and preserve this precious environment. Humans are like a school of fish in the same fishbowl. If you spoil the water, you have to swallow it anyhow. And the next generation will suffer for a long time. So this is the reason why we all need to cooperate on a global scale. So today, this forum is a great place to discuss what we can do for the next generation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your time with us this afternoon.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. And yeah, I deeply apologize that I have to leave early, but I have an urgent meeting with Mr. Bill Gates. He's in Tokyo today, and I have a meeting with him at the Palace Hotel. So best wishes for the success of the Nikkei Forum.
Tell him he still owes me $20 from the last time we met. All right, well, thank you. And let's go to our star-studded panel. As is appropriate. Space is big. Defence, space and AI is even bigger, so we have a large panel this afternoon and quite a lot of territory to cover. So we have experts in AI law, experts in space industry, experts in defence and space, and experts in space, education and outreach, and let's go straight there. Kate, if you can just give us a brief introduction of yourself, and for the benefit of this audience, can you explain how we might already have all used space today many times?
Sure. Thank you very much, Chris, and hello everyone. I'm Kate Kitagawa, and I'm new here. I just moved from Japan to Melbourne, and then I'm serving as Professor of Practice in Space Research and Education at La Trobe University. So I moved here only a month ago, but I've known Chris for a few years now. And one of the best experience I had working at JAXA was to collaborate with the counterparts and also all the colleagues at ASA, and then all the people from the State Department, and then other people from, say, ASPI, for example. I was invited to the Sydney Dialogue. It was first time coming to Sydney in Australia. So I had a blast, just a fantastic time coming here. And then I had a visitor from Melbourne, and also like they wanted to look for partnerships. So not just with JAXA, but with many other fronts, including universities. So for the few years I was serving at JAXA, it was just amazing to discover how much you have been doing here, and then how much we can do together. So this move was more or less sort of like for me a great excitement. And then I would like to just say that this space biology program at La Trobe Institute for Molecular Science, I'm very grateful for bringing me here so that I can make more connections and then network extended to Australia. So to begin, I prepared a slide so that we can be on the same page, because space is huge, so we might want to be on the same page. But how? Right? So let me open this. Nope, this one, the one before. So this is an image of the sky. And then this is an impressive image of the sky. And then for those people who's been living in Australia, it's become very obvious about the tail called the emu in the sky. So this was an indigenous tradition to look for the black patch between or among the bright stars. And then look for, this one is actually the emu's head, just right across the sky. And then what they have been doing was that's exactly the same as what we are doing to space. What they have done for all this time was to live in a space. So there was not a concept or to have a boundary between where the space starts, but then they looked at the patch and then they estimated the time for harvest and so on, so that they lived in space and then lived with space. In that sense, this tale is very alive, and then I was very impressed to visit the ASA and then having this emu in the sky boardroom, which was really a nice tradition to succeed. So just to be on the same page from the Australian perspective, it is nice to have some sort of acknowledgement, to have we share the sky and then we live in space and then we are living within it all the time. So this is the beginning of the journey together. So now we have this familiar images of making a diagram around Earth and then how we locate ourselves in terms of the satellite. So we are just changing the perspectives from looking at the sky above to all the way to space and then looking down Japan and Australia. So now you see some satellites orbiting, and then this was AI generated. So I'm not sure if that, the orbit is exactly right or not, maybe. But you can tell us more about the AI's usage and then how it has been developed in the, under the space industry. So my point here is that just to change the perspective from looking up the sky, now we're looking at Earth or ground from the sky. And then this is how we have been viewing and developing the satellite's world. And then now, this is an orbit of the satellite, so a few of them, and then those are the active orbits trajectory of the Japanese satellites. And as you can see, the satellites move from Australia to Japan, and it goes back and forth, H shape, and then coming back and forth between Japan and Australia. So it's not just a coincidence that Australia and Japan has a higher collaboration of the possibilities of doing more on the satellites, but it's more or less natural, and it has been established that it is very easy and a firm connection established in the world of satellites. Then, the very good example, again, when those satellites goes around, what give us is data. And then there, AI, usage of it, and then how they can download from the space to Earth. This is a very good sort of frontiers for the space industry. And then here, it's a very familiar image from the Japanese satellite, Himawari 9. And then it's provided to anyone who can browse on the internet. And then now we can make a move just a bit to show like how it goes. And then you can see the clouds moves. And then this becomes very intuitive for you that data has been translated into everyday life so that you've been seeing the forecast. And then now you see like, where it's coming from and then how it's being used. So this is the perspective from space to Earth, and then this is how we are using it every day. And then just to give the break that it's not only the data of the climate that we use, but we have different uses of the sky or satellites every day, which is GPS, right? And then when we are having a pre-meeting, that Campbell has the really brilliant statistics about how much we're relying on GPS. So can you just jump in to fill in this part?
Sure. Hello, I'm Campbell. Yes, so GPS, there's a lot of aspects about GPS that a lot of people don't realise. It's actually just a big timing system up there. And we utilise that timing system for a range of things, not just to get you from A to B. I know most people, GPS has been helping with stopping arguments in a car by getting from A to B. Instead of looking at the book, you just rely on the GPS. But it actually requires you to land a plane a lot of the time, these high accuracy GPS. So imagine going down in a fog and then you didn't have this high accuracy GPS, you would have you think it's a problem. But the biggest one people don't realise is that the timing system is actually used for syncing our watches, but it's also to sync all the financial markets as well, and our energy system. So the moment we actually turn off these systems, our energy systems start doing brownouts. So we're very dependent on space, very. All right, that was my very short spiel of just the GPS. There is comms as well.
Right. Okay, so we're going to follow up, right?
Oh, well, I think we saw a bit of the comms go down a little bit in space at the time with the last presentation.
Okay,
so.
You're right, that's right. All right, so the last one that we would like to cover is another AI-generated image of how we are using space for defense reasons. So this one is a satellite, satellites viewing the particular parts of the Earth. And then they're trying to get us the information about the images, like how things are moving under the sea or near the sea, at the harbors, and then all these places that we can recognize on the land. So this again, like this has been all creating the world of satellites, and then we're very, very dependent on this. And then now, like we are moving from the time where we are looking up the sky, but coming down from the sky, that we have like a real high dependency on space. So now, like as before, we are living in it, and then we are living with it. So that's a short description.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Very comprehensive. But just scrape the surface, I guess, of how we rely on space. And I'm glad you had Himawari 9 up there. The Bureau of Meteorology say that 95% of their data comes from satellites. So, in fact, beyond 24 hours, there would really be no weather forecasts without, no accurate weather forecasts without space data. Well, let's move now to AI. So, Mimi, you're a professor of private and commercial law at the University of New South Wales. You're a global expert in AI. Can you tell us, please, did you use ChatGPT to prepare for today? No, that's not.
I did not use ChatGPT, but just a show of hands, how many of you in the audience use ChatGPT or another AI tool on a day-to-day basis? Okay, so I'm seeing probably about 85% of the audience. How many of you trust that AI tool that you're using? Sometimes, okay. So this is actually the biggest challenge in terms of we have almost accepted that we need to use AI for a range of purposes, including designing your amazing space presentation, to analysing large complex volumes of data that you gather from space. So, and for all of us, I'm saving hours from either drafting contracts, preparing presentations. In fact, sometimes I think my students would probably prefer an AI to me. Look, I think today we are using AI when I started researching AI about almost 10 years ago, I was in the UK. I was a professor at Oxford University and set up its first legal tech innovation lab. It was a really difficult process for trying to convince companies to use AI or more advanced forms of AI. And now everyone is feeling that they would miss the boat if they're not adopting AI. But yet this show of hands or lack of show of hands also indicate to us that in the age of AI, if data is the new oil, then trust is the engine. And this is where I think Australia and Japan can really build this engine to drive the future of AI in our region. There's a lot of, obviously, opportunities that come from business and government adoption of AI for productivity in sectors that are very important for both countries, like healthcare, to developing innovative climate tech solutions, and of course space and defence. Of course, there are a lot of risks, and I work for the past few years with companies and government as a senior advisor on responsible AI and trustworthy AI. I think the risks that we face today, the greatest risks, are not the sort of existentialist risks that Terminator, robotics gone wrong, they're going to just kill us, which I'm sure that is a risk in the future. But I'm talking about everyday risks when we are using ChatGPT. Obviously, you've heard of large language models. You probably don't know some of the technical terms like transformers. Our understanding of actually how AI systems work, particularly the frontier models, remain limited. There are privacy risks. There are cybersecurity risks. It's no surprise that the last 2 years, sort of internet scams in this country, superannuation pension funds were very much affected earlier this year. Cybersecurity hacks, this have accelerated in the age of AI. And so all of these risks are real today, and they obviously undermine a lot of the values that Japan and Australia champion, including undermining human rights and potentially undermining democracy and the rule of law. When we think about the role that AI-fueled deepfakes have been playing in elections around the world the last few years, we really have genuine concerns about these everyday risks as opposed to machines that run away and destroy the world. So these are the risks that business leaders and governments obviously at the moment are sort of very aware of, yet trust is at an all-time low. There's been global trust surveys of AI, and it's very interesting that the developing countries like Nigeria, China, I wouldn't call Saudi Arabia a developing country, but some of the countries that are not associated with perhaps Western democratic developed countries are adopting AI at a much faster rate. They're trusting AI. And this is no surprise that nobody raised their hands up when I asked how many of you actually trust the AI tools that you're using. Japan and Australia rank very low in terms of our trust of AI systems that we adopt. And therefore that's reflected in the adoption rates in industry and government and across society. And we know that we need to maximize the benefits of AI. But in countries like ours, the trust factor is missing. And so when there is a lag in governance, that's going to also affect the trust factor. Right now, there is no AI regulation in Australia or Japan in terms of more binding legislation. Everyone is caught up because of the geopolitics of AI. When America and China are just sort of racing to develop the next big arms race in AI, countries like ours are just waiting and seeing. And of course, we also want to be part of this. No one wants to lose out on the AI race. But governance is often lagging. And so I think what we can say is that Japan, I was involved a few years ago, was advising the World Economic Forum and the G7 digital ministers on the Hiroshima AI process. I started advising the UK government many years ago as an expert member on their responsible AI unit. So it was a real, for me, it was very impressive to be involved with the Hiroshima AI process with my Japanese colleagues, because I could see where Japan was going, that it had this vision that as democratic countries, and Australia is part of the Hiroshima AI process friends group, as democratic countries, if we leave governance in a vacuum, then perhaps countries that don't share our values are going to be filling that vacuum. And so...
Maybe
Yeah,
I might,
pause it.
just because we're fast running out of time,
Sure.
I'm sorry, but I might come back to you to look at the opportunities too that AI provide. But before we go there, Malcolm, the Australian Strategic Policy Institute, you have been studying space and defence for many years, and now there's AI. So can you just take us through some of the connections between those three?
Sure. I'm Dr. Malcolm Davis. I'm a senior analyst in defence strategy at ASPI. I joined ASPI in 2016, and when I joined, I said I wanted to do space policy as my main focus. So they said, fine, go to it. That sounds really interesting. I went up to defence in Canberra, and I said, let me talk to someone about space policy. And the response I got in 2016 was, well, why do we need to think about space? Because the Americans give us everything in space. That just shows how attitudes have changed in recent years, because now Australia has an Australian Space Agency, we have Defence Space Command, we're actively pursuing our own sovereign space capabilities, including sovereign launch capabilities, something that would have been completely unthinkable back in 2016. And we recognise space as an operational domain in its own right. It's not just an enabling adjunct to the sea, air, land domain. So space is up there of equal importance to sea, air, land and cyber. And so our approach to space, our mindset, our thinking has really developed much more sophisticated than what it used to be. And I think that it's now moving to bring into in two ways. Firstly, how can we work with allies and partners, including Japan, to do more in space together? Secondly, how can we think about new technologies that are on the horizon, including artificial intelligence, and what role they play? And when you think about how future warfare is evolving, and you think about things like drones in Ukraine, surveillance capabilities across the vast hemispheric regions of the Indo-Pacific, artificial intelligence enabled space capabilities, including sophisticated satellites, play a critical role in terms of ensuring that we have situational awareness, we have a knowledge edge over the opponent, or if we lose that knowledge edge, our space capabilities allow us to reconstitute lost capability as quickly as possible. I think the other thing that has changed in recent years, certainly since 2007 onwards, has been that we recognise that the space domain is highly contested. It's not a peaceful, serene sanctuary that sits separate from terrestrial competition below. We are seeing China and Russia rapidly developing counter-space capabilities, anti-satellite systems that are threatening our critical space support capabilities. And General Montgomery, in talking about air power in the 60s, he said, if you lose control of the air, you lose the war and you lose it quickly. Well, the same can be said for space. If we lose control of space, we lose the war and we lose it quickly. So now a key focus for both Japan and for Australia is how do we assure access to space? How do we have resilient space capabilities? How do we augment and reconstitute space capabilities in a crisis? So Australia is moving from having essentially provided a suitable piece of real estate for ground facilities in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, through to actually thinking about their own space capabilities, actually thinking about space control as a task. And Japan is doing the same thing as well. So I think that there are real opportunities there for Tokyo and Canberra to work together on everything from resilient satellite architecture to responsive space launch through to space domain awareness and space control, because we have to. If we don't, we lose control of space and we lose the war and we lose it quickly. We have to be able to deter to avoid that war from happening, and part of that is working together in space. And I know Chris is looking at me in a meaningful way, so I get the impression that that is where I need to wrap it up on that particular comment.
No, thank you, Malcolm. And so we've heard how we use space every day, and it's critical to national defence, and we've heard how with AI there are risks and no doubt significant opportunities. So let's look first at the opportunities that exist between Australia and Japan in space industry. So Campbell, you've recently been at the Osaka World Expo. Just wonder if you can give us some of your observations on what opportunities exist between Japanese and Australian companies to cooperate.
Thank you, Chris. Yes, my name is Campbell Pegg. I'm Director of Space at SASIC, which is the South Australian Space Industry Centre. We focus on developing the space industry in South Australia for the benefit of Australians and its partners. So, yes, I do have a South Australian twist to a lot of what's going on, but I am here for Space for Australia as well. So I'm hopefully can give a bit of context on the space side. I'm a spacecraft engineer by trade, so I live and breathe space most of my life, so I've always enjoyed every aspect of space, so happy to talk exploration missions if you'd like as well, but not today. Look, the biggest one is that I went to Japan. It's my first time. Firstly, Japan is an absolutely beautiful country. I am looking forward to going back. I'm looking forward to seeing more of it as well. I only got to stay there for a week and a bit, but I can see so many amazing things there. But the biggest question for me is how do you complement something that you've got that's so amazing already? Your space industry has astronauts, as we've seen. You've got Kibo, which is doing microgravity experimentation. You have satellites, geostationary and low Earth orbit satellite systems. You've got rockets. You've got a whole range of things that are going on here. You've got a really, I would say, an amazing space ecosystem already there. And so how do countries like Australia actually complement and support that capability that you already have? And Kate has alluded to this already, but really geography is the absolutely first step, right? It's something that we can't really change. And it's something that we do have quite a bit. So in South Australia, and this is only one state of the whole of Australia, our state is 2.5 times the size of Japan. And we have less than 2 million people that live there, and most of those people live in one city. So really it's only about 800,000 people that live in the space of 2.5 Japans. So one might say there's not many people there. And that actually affords a few things. So the first one is that for launches, for example, if you want to launch south or launch anywhere, you're not really disturbing many industry. There's not many planes that are flying over by us. So you can actually launch quite a lot of things from there. So let's say something is disrupting, let's say a Japanese launch site. You can actually then launch from Australia as well, and you can actually have that resilient space ecosystem. The other one, which you've actually already utilised twice, is returns, where Hayabusa 1 and 2 have both returned to South Australia in Woomera. And that is primarily because, once again, we don't have a lot of people in that region, and you're able to pick up an asteroid sample and bring it back. And we're looking forward to obviously supporting Japan in its Phobos mission that is going to be going on as well. But just to allude to that as well, there's other companies now that are landing things in South Australia. You guys were pretty much one of the first, but the other company is named Varda who's doing it. And instead of bringing back asteroid particles, they're actually bringing back drugs that they've manufactured in space to test and to help humans here on Earth. And the reason why they're doing this is because before to go to the International Space Station, it took about 5 years to get that item back and do all of those experimentation. Now they're doing it within 6 months. And so that itself is is going to be helping the health sector and also manufacturing things in space for a very long time. And this is really a new area that's coming forward there. Now, I will just, one other thing from a geography point of view is that exactly what Kate has said is that we actually form the same latitude on Australia and Japan. And that has huge advantages when it comes to satellites for geostationary ones, so they can hover over both Japan and Australia. But also for low Earth orbit ones, you can actually then take images of Australia and then download those images in Japan and vice versa. So there's huge benefits just from a pure geography side that we can actually do it that complements both what Japan and Australia have.
Thank you, Campbell. I wonder, actually, Kate, you have a particular interest in microgravity research. Just very quickly, do you think you can add and explain to the audience what the benefits of microgravity research are?
Definitely. So in a simple term, once again, so here we have to be on the same page. So you have a drop of water coming down from the, water sink anywhere. And what does it look like? Drop like that, and then that's the gravity. So when you have experiments done on Earth, always gravity affects. But then if you don't have anything, and then in space, you have a perfect shape of the water drop, right? So it's a similar idea. So when you make medicine, and then you don't want to have the dragging ones, but you want the perfect shape. The same thing for the medical research. There will be something that will not be affected by gravity, that would be very beneficial, efficient, and more advanced. And then that's where the medical research is taking us to. And then for that, we need the infrastructure, the similar things as GPS. But if we have the infrastructure built, especially in Australia, coming back here and do the research, and then also making new drugs and then selling, it's not as easy as it says. Like, it will have many more attempts, and then we have to have regulations and testing, but still, it's a great progress. And that's why this mechanism making, infrastructure making, and then having the medical research done based here in Australia. And then Victoria is especially strong in pharmaceutical, medical research. And then this is where we like to combine and collaborate quickly.
Excellent, thank you very much. So creating not only that infrastructure, but the regulatory environment that enables things to return to Australia from space, really important, something the Space Agency is working on and doing, just a plug there for my own organisation. But Mimi,
Yes.
there's an analogous situation in the world of AI. So in a few sentences, what should Australia and Japan be doing to establish the right regulatory environment for safe and responsible use of AI?
I think given that both countries and many other countries in our region are adopting a wait-and-see approach to regulation, I think that there are very tangible areas of law and regulation in respect to data governance that Japan and Australia can actually work on. Japan came up with the concept a few years ago that's called data free flow with trust. Some of the Japanese colleagues will be aware of that. And so Japan and Australia could work on, because obviously data flow across borders is actually very, very important to enable to develop AI solutions and deploy it effectively. Australia and Japan can reduce some of the regulatory barriers in relation to privacy, cybersecurity, and so I think those areas of law that Australia and Japan can actually help to improve the interoperability of cross-border data flow. I think that would be a very tangible step going forward to maximise the benefits of AI and trustworthy transparency and fairness in that regard.
Thank you. And Malcolm, just to pull on that thread that Campbell raised, of Australia sharing similar latitude, north and south, with Japan. I mean, what are the strategic implications of closer commercial cooperation, particularly in launch and returns between Australia and Japan?
Look, I think, as probably a lot of people understand, if you can launch close to the equator, you gain energy from the Earth's rotation, which actually means that it costs less per kilogram of payload to get into low Earth orbit in an equatorial orbit. Now, Campbell talked about the southern launch sites firing out over the Southern Ocean for polar and sun-synchronous orbits. That's a huge advantage that Japan could take advantage of in terms of Earth observation capabilities. But there's also the northern launch sites in northern Queensland that are now being established. Just recently, Gilmore Space attempted to launch a rocket out of its launch site at Bowen, Queensland, And you have other companies, Equatorial Launch Australia, Space Centre Australia, that are establishing launch sites near Weipa in northern Queensland. All of these are close to the equator. So they gain an economic advantage by picking up that Earth's rotational energy. So if you have collaboration between Tokyo and Canberra on launch from Australia, there's real benefits for Tokyo, for example, to take advantage both of the northern launch sites to gain access to those equatorial launch opportunities, but also the southern launch sites going for polar and sun signals. So Australia is doubly blessed in having ideal geography for both polar and equatorial launch sites. And we're close to the equator. We're essentially reasonably stable government. We have a strong economy. We have a high technology sector. So I think there's a partnership there waiting to be made between Japan and Australia to build that launch capability and for both countries to benefit.
Thank you very much. And you probably got the impression that we could talk about this all afternoon, but unfortunately our time is coming to an end. So I am going to really stress test our panel right now, and in 2 words or less, please, panel. How would you describe the future of either space, defence, AI, or all 3 together in terms of cooperation between Australia and Japan? Campbell?
Going up.
Excellent. Okay.
Space education.
Nice. Mimi?
Values leadership.
Good. Malcolm?
Assured deterrence.
Okay. And perhaps you've thought of your own 2 words as well. So please join me, everybody, in thanking the panel.